Hi everyone, it's Diane. I have my farmers market journals all completed. There is a 3 signature journal and 3 traveler's notebook, which are 1 signature traveler's notebook inserts. So let's do the traveler's notebook ones first, and we'll save this one for last. Each journal is going to come with a little packet. It's a little glassine bag with a couple of extra cards and just some extra pieces, whatever I had left. One of the papers, this paper here, has bottle caps on it as a design. So I took the extra piece, the leftover piece, and punched out the bottle caps. And I did use some for embellishments, but I put them in these bundles too. And some of them were just, they weren't complete, but I punched them out anyway, because if you're gonna collage, you can just put things on those edges if you wanted to. There's just a little cherry that I stamped and then punched out, and a couple of apples there. So just something similar for each journal. A couple of the cards were too big to fit in the packet, so a couple of them will have their cards separate. So here we have 3 traveler's notebooks. They will all be in one listing, and they will have a title. So there'll be a drop-down box for you to choose the title. This one is called Sweet Life because the card says Living the Sweet Life. And it's got the red patchwork design and brown seam binding to go with the brown in that card there. This one is going to be called Preserve because we are preserving memories in these journals. And on the little card, it's a little stand. I'll take the ribbon off so you can see it better. But they're selling jam, jellies, and preserves. So this one is called Preserve, and this one is called Daisy Garden. Very fresh looking. So they're all tied with a seam binding ribbon. And I moved the cover. I had the paper pad cover in here, but I took it out already. It is called Farmer's Market, the paper pad, and I don't remember which brand it was, but it was one of Michael's Hot Buys, and it was 1 or 2 years ago that I got it, probably 2. So you wouldn't be able to find it now, except maybe online. So I love the patchwork pattern on here, and the cut apart cards are used throughout all of the journals, and this little label is part of the cut apart sheet. This, I used a lot of feed sack fabric in these journals also. I had a lot of fun just pairing the feed sack fabrics with the farmers market designs. So that's what this is, and a piece of vintage rickrack, and this is a printable label. And this is part of the cut apart sheet. It's a shopping list. And this is just a brown mason jar tag. Oh, and there's a doily behind the card, a paper doily that I glued down. And I did sew all the way around the perimeter of the book cover. On the inside front cover, the doily wraps around here. And I used a digital kit from the old design shop, which I will link below, and it is it's vintage. What are these called? Oh my gosh, flashcards, vintage flashcards, and there were a lot of fruit and vegetable images in that, mostly fruits and vegetables. There were a few other images that I didn't print because they didn't go with the farmer's market, but most of them did. So I will link that below also. So there's one of the images. Some of them were this brown and black design, and a few were colored like this with the big letter. So there was an assortment of different types. And another digital kit I used in the traveler's notebooks was this one, which is from Raspberry Road Designs, and she's not on Etsy. She has a website, so I will link the website I'm trying to remember what the name of this. I'll try to link the exact kit when I link the website, because I can't remember the name of it. But there are two that I got. She has, if you click on, or if you go to her website and then you type in this, whatever this was called, then you would get all of the things, all the different sets. And so some of them are clusters that you can fussy cut, and some are, I forgot what she calls them, but they like go on the edge of a page, but they're like a cluster, but it's made to go on the edge of a page and you cut them out. She just has, and the prices are good. She has wonderful, wonderful designs. It's made for 12 by 12, but I printed it out on my printer just as it was, and it came out to be 7 3/4 by 8. And then there are some also in this kit. There are pages that are for backgrounds, like to print on the back. There was this one, which is creamy, and it looks like it has a texture to it. There's also a orangey colored one that you'll see, and then there was one that looked like dark brown wood, which I didn't use because that would take a lot of ink. So this is the second digital set that goes with this collection, and it was stacked papers. So she usually has the printable papers and then a set called stacked papers, and it has more layers, and there are fewer pages in that. This one has 4 pages. Okay, that's a lot of explanation for that one kit, but there you go. There's a small ledger paper in here. This is also from the Raspberry Road paper. I don't think I used any scrapbook paper. I think the only printed paper I use, except for this paper, I just used the Raspberry Road. So this is a scrap from this paper, and there's a little dimensional round jar again, and a pear is inside it, and a little journaling card. It says Blossom Farms. There's a piece of vintage rickrack down the side. There's the orange background paper. Isn't that pretty? And you can see flowers in it. It's just so pretty. And I thought the peaches looked really good on that peachy colored paper. This is coffee dyed paper, and you get some of my vintage canning and preserve labels. So there's one for peas. This is from a book about a farm, and this was just like a ledger that was kept for the gardening, what was done in the garden. So this is 1758 here. It says June, cow eat corn, cucumber set out 25 cabbages, cucumbers gathered, pulled beet about 4 bushels. I'm sure that it's BUSH period. I'm sure it means bushels. So it's just interesting. So I put that in there. It was called Cream Hill. That was the name of the book. And I made a wonderful junk journal with that book cover because it was so pretty. This is from this kit, this book paper. Life is just a bowl of cherries. Not book paper, scrapbook paper. There's a pear that's stamped, and a ledger paper, and another one of the Raspberry Road papers, and a grid paper. This is vintage, and then there's one of the labels. This is vintage fabric and a bit of lace up here, and this is the edge part of a embroidered linen. There's a little bit of embroidery right there, but you get the edged part. And this is from Raspberry Road. Now this is just a little tiny merchandise tag, and I had glued bits of paper and sewn around it, and I made those a long time ago, so I used them in these journals, and I stapled it on with one of the little bottle caps that I cut from the paper. This is the Raspberry Road paper. Wasn't it perfect to go with this farmer's market kit? And this is something that I just got in a Happy Mail. Just a raspberry printed note card from Current, I believe. Yeah, I thought that was perfect. Thank you. This is one of the tags that came with the cut apart kit. It says made with love, and it's clipped on there with a teardrop paper clip. There's another of the flashcards. Well, there's two of them. There's a little cluster there. I stamped the jar here with this little cloth lid and an apple. There's a peach label, vintage. This is a tiny little pocket that my friend Leslie sent me. I want to pause right here and show you. I had just purchased those Christmas cut apart or cut out things from fabric, and I showed it on a video that I purchased those from her, and those blue printed time cards. And a lot of you went over there to her shop and made some purchases, and she appreciated that. So she sent me this little packet that had these colored envelopes, and I forgot to go to her shop to see if they're in her shop, but these are perfect little tiny envelopes. So this is one of them. I glued it down with the flap open, but it's a little tuck spot. And then these little tiny coin envelopes she sent me, and some CD envelopes, which I don't have, so she sent me some in pretty colors. So I will link her shop also, because I'm not sure if these items are in her shop. I was going to go there and look, but I forgot to. And this is a label that I stamped and cut out and glued on. There's a stamp that I have. Oh, let's fill that pocket back up. So this is a ear of corn that I stamped and die cut. And this is a canvas tag, and I stamped the sunflowers on it. You can write on the back because it's backed with cardstock. I sewed it to cardstock. And this is one of the cut apart pieces. And then this is from the same set. It's a Stampin' Up set. It's stamps and dies. So I just die cut the jar out of fabric, and I had ironed some interfacing to it, very lightweight interfacing. So I die cut that and some cardstock and glued them together, and you could see a bit of the white where the cardstock was, so I just inked around the edges where the white was. And this is a label and a stamp that come with this set also. It's called Perfectly Preserved, I think. And then I just tied a little piece of twine around the neck of that jar. And this was supposed to go on the front as a book plate, but I forgot I was going to do that, and I glued or sewed this on. So then this would have been partially hidden. So I put it at the back. You can write your name on the back. And then we already talked about what's on the back cover. So we'll try to go through the other two a little more quickly. This one is Daisy Garden. It has the green and white plaid, and it has a large yellow doily. This is the doily. I found a pack of those at a flea market, or else somebody sent them to me, I can't remember which, but they're really big, and so of course I had to cut some of it off, but I glued that on there, and again sewed all the way around, and I sewed these pieces to craft cardstock and then glued them down. We'll get to the back we'll talk about the back when we get there. Onion. Raspberry Road. This is one of the stack papers for sure. This is from Raspberry Road, and it's got just a really pretty checkerboard design with all of the different patterns that are in the kit, and also some little Kate Greenaway images are on it. Wish I could remember the name of the kit. There's a blackberry label, and this is also from that Cream Hill book. This is a berry basket page that it was a scrap, so I turned it into a pocket, add a couple pieces of bric-a-brac, and I glued it to the cherry page. So we've got cherries and berries here. It's not just berries. There's peaches and apples and stuff in those baskets. There's a little tag that you can write on, and then a Let's Eat card. I love that pear stamp. I keep thinking there's thread here, but that's on the paper. It's printed. So pretty. And these papers are very smooth. I used presentation paper, I think, to print them on. There's a fabric flip with vintage fabrics. This is Raspberry Road patterned paper. There's another one of the merchandise tagged with fabric on it. A little cluster up there. There's some embroidery on that linen. All of these are from the old design shop, from the same flashcard kit. Again, a stamped jar. They were all stamped and die cut and then just glued on. There's the little pocket, and I only had one of those canvas tags, so the other two books just got a little white tag with sunflowers stamped on it. And there's a little card tucked in there. It says Farmer's Pocket Ledger. It's part of the kit, the paper pack from Michaels. And then here's another jar cut from fabric. From the kitchen of, and on the back, this is a piece of feed sack fabric. I love the colors in that, so I took the orange and put orange rickrack on it. I guess it was the other book that had orange rickrack on it also. A stamped label, a little tiny tag, and I just added that little cutout milk cap. There's a market list that you can write your list on, and a jar tag. And then lastly, we have Preserve. This one has a really dark green seam binding, and it has the yellow doily. And this one has the bottle cap paper as the cover. It's cardstock paper. Oh, I'm going to switch this out for something else. I like the way this turned out. It's a patterned yellow cardstock piece. It's got dots on it. And then these were stamped and die cut. And then some dark green rickrack. And it says corn up there. This is also from the Cream Hill. No. I think this is from a cookbook, but I liked the illustrations, and this is a vegetable garden. There's instead of a flip, this one got this little side cluster. So the person that sent me these cards sent me 3 of them, so they were just enough for the Traveler's Notebooks. This tag says Sweet Treats. And here we have the same kind of fabric with the bottle, jar. There's a fabric cluster. just says, "A family is a patchwork of love." And on the back, again, VTech fabric with yellow rickrack, and a grocery list, and the jar. 3 traveler's notebooks. Now let's look at the larger journal. It has 3 signatures. I talked about how I constructed the cover in a previous video, and at least a couple of you were interested in a video, a tutorial on how I put it together, but it is a flour sack. This whole background piece is a flour sack, and it has this printed on it. Stockton brand, water powered, quality since 1890. It says high gluten on it, but don't worry, the journal itself is gluten free. So I decorated it with a lot of vintage VTech fabrics and yo-yos and buttons. So as I explained in the previous video, I had glued in the center of the cardstock the chipboard when I laid it down because I wanted to sew around it, but I couldn't get all the way to the edge of the chipboard with my sewing machine because I would have had to bend the chipboard. So I could only get this far, which meant that from here to here it wasn't glued or stitched, so it wiggled. So I took some dark gray embroidery floss, and I had punched little holes, and I didn't try to make them even at all, as you can tell. Some of them are even crooked. And I just sewed that side, and then that side, and then all around the spine, and that really helped stabilize it. And you can see the stitches on the inside, and I just tied them. Instead of making knots, I tied them at the ends so that you have these loose threads in there, which I like. And then I sewed, so I sewed all the way around through the chipboard because it's not very heavy chipboard. And then I sewed where the fabric hung over the chipboard. I just sewed around there so that you can't open up the fabric and see the chipboard. It's all sealed shut with a zigzag stitch, and it's still able to fray. On this end, I just put pieces of feedsack fabric, and they're going to get bent and fray, and they're just going to get all worn looking the more you play with this journal. Here is a piece of cheesecloth, a vintage yo-yo that came from a very vintage quilt that I found at a flea market last year, and some vintage buttons, and I put the same floss through the buttons. And then you get 5 yo-yos down the center from the same quilt. On the back, I took the back part of another feed sack that was the same design, but a heavier fabric. It says Hutchinson Bag Corporation, Hutchinson, Kansas. So I just cut that piece out, and I collaged all these different pieces of feed sack fabric. There's a little fussy cut orange flower here and here, and added another yo-yo. So this was a lot of fun to just play with and collage all over that cover with my yo-yos and feedsack fabrics and playing with these old 1930s colors. I didn't say, I think these journals have 13 pages, so it's 26, so it's 52 front and back. I'm not sure how many pages are in. I think there's 8 or 9 pages in each signature, so I'll put that in the listing. And I also didn't say these measure 4 1/4 by 8 1/2. This measures 6 1/2 by 9 1/2, but that counts the overhang of the fabric, so it's more like 9 inches for the cardstock. Inside it just has muslin sewn to the back side, and there's a pucker there and some puckers there. This is a piece of tablecloth and a piece of feedsack fabric, and it is sewn to cardstock, and this fabric was twice the width. I wrapped it around so that it would be a finished edge there. And I took one of my giant tags. I'll have to put something in there and just stamped on it, "This book belongs to," and put one of the flashcards in there. On the front page of each signature, and this was in a previous video, there's cheesecloth, there's feedsack fabric, there's one of the flashcards, and it is sewn on as a pocket. So there's a couple of tags tucked in. This is the chicken paper from that hot buy paper from Michael's. So where all the stitching is from the front, it's all on the back there, but I think it'll be fun to just write little bits inside each of these little spaces. This is from a children's book, really nice thick paper. It was an encyclopedia or something. It was an educational book, and this is about where fruits and vegetables come from, where they're commonly grown, and things like that. But they have beautiful images. There's just a piece of crocheted lace on the edge. This is coffee dyed craft parchment paper, I guess. I put that grape label there because there's grapes there, and I think I switched the papers around because I think when I did this, the grape page was right here. That's okay. On this page, I did a pocket with some of my die cuts, stamped die cuts, and some banners that I made, and some little leaf and flower die cuts. And these are cutouts from the paper pad, and there's a jar. This book doesn't have any of the Raspberry Road paper. Because of the size of the paper, it was perfect for the traveler's notebooks. So this one does have scrapbook paper in it, other than the cardstock paper. Fabric, vintage fabric there, and there's coffee dyed scrapbook paper. And this one just has a plain merchandise tag and one of the bottle caps stapled on. This is coffee dyed composition book paper. In the center of each signature is one of my garden binder cards, and this is crinium. It's a lily, relative of the amaryllis, but it's more dainty and elegant, just in case you wanted to know. And I paper clipped a flashcard to that. Little cluster there. There's a little pocket. It has a card inside, and I just took a little scrap of paper and used pinking shears on the edges and glued it down as a little pocket and put a little merchandise tag in there. And these go behind the envelope. This one has pumpkins. It's a little early for pumpkins right now, but they will eventually arrive at the flea market or farmer's market. Here's a little sack that I had. I didn't want to put a pocket here to cover the chickens, so I had already had this one all decorated, so I just glued it down and tucked behind this little card. And then this is, I'm going to have to show you how I made this, but it is from a vintage photo album, the kind that you put the great big 8x10 photos in. And I cut apart the frame part. It's textured. I'm trying to show you the texture, and I don't know if you can see it, but I stamped my fruits and veggies on that. I made a little tag or bookmark. You can use that as a bookmark. Here's a second signature with its feedsack fabric. The other book page, P's and P's. See, I put them in the right place. There's snowflake, sunflower paper, and these are just 3 separate pieces of feedsack fabric that I gathered up and sewed on there. Little fabric flip with some embroidery. These are all vintage pieces there. Red Rooster Seed Company, radish, mason jar, and I glued on, this was a cut off piece of the paper, and I glued this card on and that little label that I stamped. There's some raspberries. And the plant card has tomatoes. There's a radish card. There's sunflowers there. Here's some more tomatoes and a cluster. Another little pocket I made with a scrap. There's a pocket in a card in there. You can, with some of them, you can put the tag in after you close the envelope. It helps hold the envelope closed. Love this page from the children's book. More tomatoes. I love this combination. So this is VTech fabric. Love the colors. These are I cut those fussy cuts from this fabric. And it's attached to a piece of yellow cardstock sewn on with zigzag stitch. I glued this little skinny label that I stamped. And then this was in my stash already. It's an old bingo card, and this is from a vintage magazine advertisement about fruit pectin, so you can make jelly. It's got a vintage ledger sheet behind it. And this is a tab from that ledger sheet. It says A and B. I just love the way that looked, and then combined with this, I thought it was perfect. And on the back, there's a vintage hardware receipt and some washi tape. Signature 3. This one has apples. Love that picture. There's beans tucked in there. Recipe card. This one has apples in the jar. A fabric flip. This is from a Dresden quilt. Somebody was going to make one, and I have a stack of the pieces that somebody sent me. I love this pale yellow eyelet. It's one of my favorites. It's vintage. I used one of my extra corn die cuts that I stamped on that corn label. This one has Transvaal daisy. It's one of the Gerber daisies. Here's the envelope for this one. Oh, maybe this card is supposed to go in there. And this goes here, and this goes there. There's a little yo-yo there. That one is not vintage. There's some Logan berries there. And in this back pocket we have VTech fabric that has been sewn to scrapbook paper, vintage rickrack, one of the flashcards, and then I took one of the grocery lists and made a booklet out of it. On the back cover, inside back cover, this is a piece of red gingham vinyl. You could buy this by the yard at Walmart. I got a remnant piece from their bin, from their remnant bin. But you can buy that by the yard and make picnic tablecloths with it. This is a piece of printed vintage bias tape, so it folds over. So I just put it over the edge and sewed it on. And then I made this fabric mason jar, just like I did the other ones, and glued it on there. There's a cut-off piece. There's a, what is this? Alterations tag. I think somebody sent that to me. It's different from anything I've seen. A recipe for spiced blueberry jam. And this card. So I had so much fun working with these images and these materials that I had. And I just love the way these turned out. I hope that you love them too. I am going to list these in my shop on Monday, whatever that date will be. I'll put that in the description, at 3 p.m. because I don't know if I have to work on Monday or not. So I should be home at 3. So They will be listed in my shop on Monday at 3 p.m. Today is the 19th, June 19th, Friday. The video will go up on Saturday the 20th. So it should be the 22nd, okay, of June. Eastern Standard Time. I think I got all that information. I'll put it all in the description. I have a lot of Etsy shops and whatnot to list. I will also, I will also link where I buy my feed sack fabrics. It's fabric thread needle on Etsy. So I will link that also. So there will be a lot of links in the description box. And please leave a comment. Tell me what you like best about these farmers market journals, or tell me what you like about a farmer's market. What do you like to buy at the farmer's market? I like to buy strawberries, which I just bought some today, and I haven't eaten any yet. It wasn't at a farmer's market, it was at a roadside stand. I like to buy corn on the cob, watermelon, but mostly I get those at the roadside stand here. But when I go to the big farmer's market, where the Amish there's a large Amish presence there with the shops, I buy grapes. I like to go in the fall and buy the Concord grapes, because it's a long ways away from me, so I don't go very often. So what do you like to buy at the farmer's market? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you for the next video. Bye-bye.